A continuación, en Poder 97.1, tu hora informativa. Entrevistas e información para nuestra comunidad. Y ahora con ustedes, Ida Pérez.
Buenos días, mi gente de Rochester, y bienvenido a su hora informativa. Mi nombre es Ida Pérez y para mí es un verdadero placer poder estar con ustedes en esta mañana. Su hora informativa es un programa que les trae información importante que esperamos que los inspire a una mejor calidad de vida para usted y su familia. Cubrimos información sobre los campos de salud, educación, empleo, vivienda y muchos otros temas más que nos afectan como persona y como pueblo. Su hora informativa está aquí todos los sábados de 10 a 11 de la mañana y nos alegramos muchísimo de que estén con nosotros en el día de hoy. Hoy tengo una persona que vamos a estar hablando de algo muy interesante que quizás muchos de ustedes quizás no entiendan, la posición y la responsabilidad que esta persona quiere tener. Le voy a pedir a él que se presente, que nos diga su nombre, de dónde eres originalmente y cuánto tiempo llevas aquí en Rochester.
Muchas gracias.
Sí.
I appreciate you having me on the show.
of
Muchas
course.
gracias por trayéndome en el show. Sí. Bueno, pues me llamo Peter Vazquez or Peterson Vazquez. Sí. Yo me crié aquí en Rochester. Nací, I was born over at Rochester General. Mostly in the 14621, 14605. Aquí por la Clinton Avenue, en la Norton. Es donde me crié. Estaba aquí toda mi vida, 51 años.
Sí, ¿Y tus papás de dónde son originalmente? Where are your parents originally from?
Yeah, absolutely. Sí, my family, mis parientes son de Guayama, Puerto Rico. Sí, y mis dos hermanas, Mildred y Dalia, both nacieron en Puerto Rico y después nosotros, los boys, nacimos aquí en Rochester.
Okay. ¿Y qué trajo tus papás para acá? What brought your parents here?
A different way of life. No quiero decir a better way of life because my father truly loved Puerto Rico, but he wanted something different. Él quería algo un poquito diferente, un poquito más para la familia de él. Mi papá siempre era un entrepreneur. Él tenía una bodega en Guayama cuando él era bien joven que se llamaba El Jibarito. Pero él dejó todo eso ir porque él siempre lo dice. Él quería atraer su familia so that we can all have an opportunity to expand beyond what he knew. But this is a guy with a third grade education who by his own right could be called a millionaire today, right? Because you know what? Yo no sabía que nosotros éramos pobres hasta que alguien me sigan diciendo eso. Tú eres pobre, pero yo tengo casa, tengo
comida, zapatos,
exactamente.
ropa.
I mean, I got mom and dad. Teníamos como, I think I grew up with probably 11 people in the house. You know, grandma, grandpa.
Cool. What year did they come here to Rochester?
El año, somewhere around 55, como 55 por ahí fue que vinieron.
Yeah, because my parents came here in 1952.
In 52, okay.
Yeah,
they might have, because I know they were part of the big push when a lot of Puerto Ricans were coming up here. If I remember correctly, now I'm the youngest of five.
Okay.
So I wasn't really around then. But the story that I get, though, is that my father first looked at Florida, then they looked at New York City. And they liked New York City because, my father was all about business and working and so forth. But I guess the crime was so high for them that my mother one day was like, nope, we're coming to Rochester.
Yeah. Now, did they have anybody here in Rochester when they came?
Yes. I think I had some aunts and uncles that had already lived here. Julio Vazquez, Julio Vazquez Sr., the deacon at St. Michael's, he had already established himself here, as I understand it, and that's one of the reasons why, and some others.
Yeah, cool. I always like to ask that question because it's always interesting, right? What brings people to Rochester and allows them to stay here and, make a life for themselves and a family and whatever, career. Because a lot of people complain about Rochester but some people find it their home and, and it's interesting that you said about your mom with New York because, a lot of people from New York City end up in Rochester for some of the same reasons, obviously for opportunities and work, those type of things, education, and also the greenery.
The greenery, yes.
It's not Puerto Rico, obviously, but but it's definitely much different than being in New York City,
Yeah,
where
you
there's
have more than little grass spots.
Yeah,
But you mentioned that. But I do remember my father always talking about one of the things he appreciated about New York City and Rochester, which is why he came here, was the Latino presence that we had, the establishment, and the work that was done back. Then
in the
getting our
60s,
rights,
in the
all that
50s,
stuff.
60s,
I mean, that's stuff that really attracted my father. Here.
Yeah, my father was the oldest of 8, so he was the first one to come. And he actually came with a friend that had already been here and was working in the farms. And when he first came, he worked in different farms, different little towns throughout New York City. But he did, make Rochester his home as well. And then eventually he brought all of his family, all of his siblings, and then we all established here. But, it's a very similar story for a lot of us, that came in the 50s and in the 60s. That's pretty much the way it happened. You came following your family and, and then establishing here. So thank you for sharing that story with us, because, people may not know you, Peter, and so I want people to understand who you are. And I know that, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, too, was, your involvement in the community, because I know you've done a lot of different things. I've seen your name in a lot of different places. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the things that you have done in the community that people may not know? They may not know who you are. I think they might know your sister more, Mildred.
Mildred, yes.
Than and that happens, right? But tell us a little bit about you and the things that you have done here in the community.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that, because I run into a lot of people and I'm like, they're like, I know you, or they look really familiar. And I'm like, I think I knew you probably when I was like 7 or 8 or something like that. Mildred being the oldest.
Yes.
But as far as what I've done in the community, I was a bit of a knucklehead when I was a teenager, and I did kind of what I thought was expected of me, kind of stuff. So I ended up dropping out of school because, believe it or not, I was a relatively good student in school. A little bit of a knucklehead when it came to authority, but one day, after doing a lot of clumsy things or silly things, I was looking into my oldest son's eyes. I was probably 17 at the time, and I decided at that point that I needed to do something to fix me first, because I knew that I knew I needed to position myself to do something different, right? So, anyways, I ended up joining the military. In a very long story short, in 2002. In 2002, I got to make sure I get that right. A little over 20 years ago, when I got out of the Army, I bought the house, so I went back into the house that I grew up in on Norton Street, or one of the places we grew up. I was a single dad, and it wasn't the same community. And I know a span of time had gone on, but I didn't see flourish. I seen something different happen. And that's kind of what prompted me to really make sure I get involved in what I can. So I started sitting on as many boards as I can. We started creating, like my wife and I started doing feeding homeless people or people that, just didn't have somebody to have dinner with. Right. Christmas mornings, for example, our kids, they were mad for a moment, but then now that they're older, but like we wouldn't let them open up Christmas presents because we fed, no, we got to go take care of people. Yeah. At one point though, I realized that, I realized that the things that I was doing at the grassroots level was great. And we were making a difference. Like I said, at one point I was sitting on almost 7 or 8 different boards at one point. But then I realized there was a systemic issue, and a lot of it stemmed from policies, and that's kind of what prompted me to keep doing what I was doing in the community, directly feeding the poor, directly dealing with homelessness, which to me is the core issue that we face as a society in this nation, not just in New York State, right? And then I started shifting my focus to be able to effectuate change to policy, getting involved in various political activities, but more so my focus from the political perspective was how is it that we can take the policies that we have and make them so that they're actually responding to our people, and that's kind of where I've had my focus. Housing is foundational to me, so for the last half a decade or so, I've been focused specifically on housing. I ran a relatively large nonprofit in Batavia with I think it was 224 units, if I remember correctly, affordable housing. But that program was so unique in the sense that we were, focused on helping people take their next steps in housing. I thought it was a phenomenal program because we've seen more people go from homelessness to higher education, home ownership. Right. I left there, and now I started running the housing council in Yates County. Same thing. I like to say that we bring people from from homelessness to home ownership because we cover the whole gamut for the county. But I've recently launched an initiative called the Step Towards Independence, with a focus on taking people that have done everything that they possibly could, Ida, to make their life better. But for whatever reason, usually income, if they take a raise at work, or if they get a promotion.
As they work overtime.
They work overtime, right? They start losing something. And I'm like, but wait a minute. These are the people that need that help the most in order to take that next step. So I've launched like I said, a program called A Step Towards Independence, at looking at development for housing that's specifically geared towards people that are ready to take that next step in their life, but need to afford daycare, need to afford RG. I mean, all these things that
all
are
these other things,
But our intent is to do that in a way that isn't really governed by grant dollars or by restricted dollars, I say. So that way we can keep our rents exactly where they need to be, which would be about 20% below fair market rate. People would say, how do you afford that? Well, we're not in the business in a nonprofit to make money. And that's where I believe there, and with some assistance and working with them. So that's kind of what I've been doing for a while.
Good. Awesome.
Little long-winded, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's perfect. I want people to kind of understand, what is it that you do and, how you've contributed to the community. And, like I said, some people may not know who you really are, so I want them to really get to know you.
I'm sorry. One of my biggest struggles in politics, or in even running for office more than anything, is that I've always struggled with the self-promotion part of. I had to. People keep reminding me, Peter, you need to, and it's tough for me. But I do like taking opportunities to highlight some of the organizations like Hope Dealers on North Clinton Avenue. I mean, the work that they do, and the thing is they save so many lives, and I'm sitting there thinking when I go there. Why aren't more people? Why aren't more leaders out here leading? That's the kind of stuff that.
And I think there's a space for everybody.
Absolutely.
Because I know the Hope Dealers. I've dealt with them a lot. I live right on Scranton Street, so I know everything that's happening on North Clinton Avenue. And I personally, even though I have picked up needles, because I have picked up thousands and thousands and thousands of needles in my area. I cannot do what they do, right? I can do other things and I can support them, but the work that they do directly, I cannot do that. Absolutely. And obviously they come from a different perspective, right? Because some of them were users that have been able to turn their lives around, so they really can understand, right, and have a different perspective of those that are using. But I can't do what they do. Right. And so we need groups like that. We need different groups doing different things, still collaborating and still respecting each other's work. But I can't do what they do.
No. And I'm glad you mentioned that. No, absolutely. Because, I had asked my daughter to join me one day. 25 years old, spunky kid, not scared of much, bocona, as we say, see? But I know that, out there she wouldn't be able. And she did try, and she did say the same thing you said. And that kind of opened up my eyes to another, component that I thought that I try to be as helpful as I can. And I try to use every outlet that I can to do this is, I've discovered that there are so many underused programs, or programs that are just not known, to so many people, not just that need the services, but are willing to either invest time or treasure. So I've kind of, decided that I'm going to take it upon myself to, to highlight those with all the social media and everything else out there. Absolutely. I like to put that.
The other thing with the Hope Dealers that I have to give them credit to is their consistency.
Yes.
And we don't often see that either, right? Because a lot of initiatives start, sometimes people get funding for something, and and a lot of times when you get funding for something, already that funding is not going to be forever, right?
Yes.
Especially if it's from a funder or something like that, unless you're directly billing, right, for that service, that funding is not going to last forever. And so, one of the credits that I have to give them is that they have been consistent, right? They have year after year, day after day, week after week, month after month.
Yep.
I mean, they're there doing their work. And so again, a lot of times those things happen too. Great ideas, wonderful initiatives, that can really service the community. But once the funding is done, then the program is done.
Correct.
And so those are other things, that I have to credit them for, not just the work that they do, but their consistency, because they have remained for a very long time. And I know that it's not easy, right?
No, but that consistency it is so important. When we're talking about dealing with people that are dealing with trauma, and in order, I think, for us, especially as service providers, regardless of what level, whether it's volunteer paid or through a grant or not, remaining trauma informed is probably one of the most important things. But it's hard to do that when you're not consistent in the things that you do. And like I said, the whole concept of a step towards independent, it falls there because that consistency is absolutely what people need. That's what creates hope.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
change.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, because I know we don't try to talk too much about politics here, and and if we do, we have to be fair and give everybody an opportunity, right? But I know you are running for office, and I know you're looking to be in the county's clerk's office. So tell us, what is for people that don't know what that is, right? What does the county clerk office do? Because some people may not have any idea of what that is. Yep. So tell us a little bit about the work that's done in a county clerk's office.
Sure. Well, in brief, it's the resident facing service provider of all the services that the county has to offer, or that the state requires the county to offer, basically. Okay. Things like the registrar for, for your property documents. They're the chief notary. Pistol permits go through there. Naturalization goes through there. All your sporting license, the DMV, the entire DMV operations goes through there. Passports. I mean, the list goes on. They're the clerks of the court, of the county and Supreme Court. I mean, it's a pretty important seat, and one that I think can be a huge asset to the community, especially as we're dealing with the increase in crime and the issues of trauma, like we're dealing in our community, I believe.
So tell us a little bit about how do people contact the clerk's office, and how do we know when we need to use that office and when we don't?
No, absolutely, that's a great question. Well, anybody. I guess I dare say that almost everybody that has a driver's license in a car has at one point interacted with the clerk's office, or not. The way they're located over at 39 West Main Street, right on the first floor. If you go in the front doors, which I understand are still closed, they're there. And that's where you would do most of your filings. A lot of the internal policies as far as accessibility has become a little bit more cumbersome. You need appointments for some. Right. The appointments, I understand, are not always easy to, are somewhat easy to get, but a little cumbersome when you get there, and so forth. But that's the phone number I don't have, but they do have a phone number that you can contact and call. But yeah, I mean there's motor vehicles. There's 4 motor vehicles. And as I understand it, after a long wait, the mobile DMV actually started rolling out recently, if I understand correctly. But accessibility is one of the issues that that has been brought to my attention. I mean, the setting aside the simple fact of now having to go through the alley that a lot of people are just not happy with. It's cumbersome, especially for people with disabilities. See, without getting too much into it, I guess, trying to keep The clerk's office offers an opportunity, I believe, for us to engage with the community where they're at. Not only decentralizing services, bringing services out to the community, and I don't mean late hours. I mean actually, parking right here on Clifford Avenue, right here, with a not just a mobile DMV, but a mobile clerk office, and the security. I mean, all these things are already kind of built in when you do those kind of project. That's what I mean by bringing accessibility out.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep it as non-political as possible.
No, that's fine. No, you're doing good. So tell us a little bit, if you can, I'm sorry, in Spanish, what is it that you're looking to do with the county? ¿Qué es lo que
en
tú estás
español,
buscando?
wow,
Sí.
okay.
Mira a ver cómo lo puedes hacer. I'm sure you could do it.
No, por seguro. Mi perdona si hablo un poquito inglés, the whole Spanglish
está
thing
bien,
going, pero trayendo la oficina del clerk del condado, sí, a tu comunidad, decentralizing. I'm not sure how you would say decentralizing in Spanish, pero basically cogiendo los servicios que pudimos y trayéndolo en la comunidad y directamente por un through a bus type of scenario, sí.
Un autobús.
Como un autobús, sí, que está preparado para eso, con la seguridad, que vamos para las diferentes áreas, ahí, right in the community. Yo creo o pienso que la oficina del clerk, sí, puede contribuir mucho a bajar el crimen que vemos en la comunidad, especialmente con revólveres. So, for example, uno de los servicios es ese permiso de la pistola, ¿sí? Un servicio que yo pienso que si nosotros como clerk, porque the clerk isn't a policy office, they don't make policy,
right.
¿sí?
No hacen póliza, ellos no hacen póliza, ellos simplemente dan un servicio.
Exactamente. So los servicios que nosotros tenemos ahí para la comunidad no debe estar, it shouldn't be bounded by political ideology. I don't know how to say that in Spanish.
So, no debería de ser una barrera política para los servicios que tienen que ofrecer.
Exactamente. So cogiendo servicios como el permiso de la pistola, por ejemplo, trayendo ese servicio a la comunidad, teniendo clase, ¿qué quiere decir para ser una persona que tiene una pistola, por ejemplo, que está registrado con la educación que uno debe tener? Al mismo tiempo, hablando con los parientes y conectando con la policía, like the Rochester Police or los sheriffs, ¿sí? Y bregar con ellos, o partner con ellos, para poder al mismo tiempo de que tenemos la parte de educación, do like a gun buyback program, pero constantly, because consistency is important. Yo pienso que ahora, because of political ideology, hay veces que nosotros miss an opportunity to do something right. Sí. But so again, como la oficina del clerk no es una oficina de policy, whether I agree or si yo pienso que ese servicio a mí me gusta o no me gusta, no debe importar. I hope I'm saying this right.
Sí. Yeah, no.
Okay. Right, so now cuando las leyes cambian es diferente, right? Nosotros we shift, pero en debe de decir, eso no me gusta porque por mi política, yo digo, vamos a traer ese servicio y cómo pudimos usar ese servicio en la comunidad para hacer cosas buenas, para bajar el crimen, para inscribir más gente en la educación de cómo se usa la pistola, cosas así.
Me gusta mucho esa idea y el ejemplo que hiciste de la pistola, porque es fácil ir y registrarse para una pistola, pero no tener la educación que va con eso, ¿verdad? La responsabilidad que uno tiene después que uno obtiene una pistola, ¿verdad? No es cuestión de tener la pistola, pero qué responsabilidad va conteniendo esa pistola. So, lo que tú estás diciendo es que te gustaría traer esos servicios a la comunidad.
Con la educación.
Educar a la comunidad primero, antes de que se registren para una pistola. Mira, cuando tú obtienes una pistola, esta es la responsabilidad que va con esta pistola. Entonces, utilizar la policía y los sheriffs y todos los que tengan que ver con law enforcement, ¿verdad? Con la ley, y decir, cuando tú tienes una pistola, estas son las cosas que pueden suceder. Y te estamos haciendo responsable de estos actos si tú tienes una pistola. Entiendo perfectamente cómo eso puede ser. También hablaste de las personas quizás que tengan una incapacidad, que you talked a little bit about the disability, people that with disabilities that may not have access to and how to bring that as well to the community. Esas personas que quizás tengan una disabilidad, que tú puedas traer esos servicios a esa persona ahí mismo en la misma comunidad y servirlo. Yeah.
La tecnología es algo bien importante, yo pienso, pero la cosa es que no todo el mundo le gusta o entienden la tecnología.
Claro.
Y no que gente mayor de edad no pueden, pero muchos no quieren.
Sí.
Y yo creo que eso se ha hecho un barrio para los servicios que tenemos ahí, especialmente en la comunidad hispana.
Y estoy de acuerdo, porque creo que mucha gente, es fácil decir, pues ves al website y bla, 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 pero no todo el mundo tiene acceso al website. No todo se puede hacer. Quizá la persona tenga un teléfono, pero no necesariamente tiene una computadora, y no todo se puede hacer del teléfono. Y no solamente personas mayores, pero personas jóvenes también. Porque lo veo a diario, que personas no tienen acceso a una computadora o no saben utilizar una computadora. No dejar todo sea tecnología. People now, everything wants to be technology. Just go to the website. But that's not necessarily so. I know of a lot of young people, too, that don't know how to access a computer, or just, they may have a phone but can't do everything that they need to do on a phone. So having that person-to-person connection is really important.
And the aging population in Monroe County, because, it's a county-wide seat, right? So the aging population in the county, including the city and surrounding towns, is, that number is increasing. And the thing is this, a customer service, yo creo que es la cosa más importante de any service, si estamos bregando con gente, customer service, it's paramount, right?
Servicio al consumidor.
Exactamente. Lo que yo quiero estar seguro que estamos haciendo en esa oficina es not pushing anybody away. So, I figure this. Yo me acuerdo cuando mi papá se murió en 2014, mi mamá, ella le gustaba ir a diferentes sitios para hacer compra or even to the DMV at one point. Pero ella iba porque para ella eso lo daba a ella una oportunidad para hablar en la comunidad. Ella se sentía como ella todavía era parte de lo que estaba pasando. Y yo digo, it's okay. I said earlier about appointments. It's very rigid right now. But I know, listen, if the 71-year-old guy who lives in Gates or lives on Clinton, it doesn't really matter where they live, right? If they just want to go somewhere so that they feel part of society still, and even if they wanted to just sit there and take 3 minutes of your time as and tell you how how life has been since their spouse died. I mean, these are the kind of customer service things that we can't let technology get in the way. And the thing is, right now, for example, and for a while, the county's office has always been a little restrictive and done. Yo digo, mira, si la oficina que provides,
que provee,
si los servicios más importantes que necesitamos, si el edificio en que están es so unsafe, maybe it's tiempo that we think out of the box y posiblemente even mover la oficina, los servicios. I mean, we can still keep the back office,
right.
Moving that into another location that is safe, so that people can just feel free to walk in and out.
Yeah. And that's true, too. I mean, even now with even the City Hall, I remember at one point, you could just walk in. I mean, they always had security, but they weren't checking everything in your pockets. And, now they have to. And I get that. I understand that we have to be safe and we have to be smart. But it does deter people from, I don't want to be bothered, so I'm not going to go in there. I have a question, but I'm not going to ask it. That type of thing, because of all these restrictions. And you're right. Everything now has gone, through technology. You have to make an appointment. You have to, call this number or whatever. And so some people may feel like, they'll delay what they have to do because they don't want to be. They just want to be able to watch somewhere. Like I want to go to the bank and take my money out of my bank. I don't want to make an appointment to do that, right?
Exactly.
I just want it when I want it. So, I get that part. So are those some of the things that you're thinking about? If you are elected for county clerk. Those are some of the changes that you want to bring to the office. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like,
sure.
What are some things you're seeing now that you feel really needs to change if we really are saying that we're serving the community?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, I believe that all political ideology that has been governing many of our county offices need to be removed right off the bat. And listen, this isn't a dig on any political persuasion because it doesn't matter. Then we can get to places where we can start being more creative, more out of the box, like decentralizing our services, bringing them into the community, like I mentioned, but also partnering with organizations in the community, considering profit sharing and stuff like that, where we can not just decentralize, but when you, for example, 14621 Business Association or the West Side Business Association, who are constantly broke, but got a lot of businesses there.
Yeah.
Imagine if we partnered with them with services that we can, provided the training, and did a little profit sharing. How many more businesses within these areas that need economic growth can grow? I mean, the dollars that are coming into the into the clerk's office, they're dollars that mean you are paying for a service, and we hope that service that's getting put into the kitty is coming back in a way that's helping the community. And yes, it all goes back into the general funds at the end of the year. But listen, without, again, getting too political on it, we can look around and say, wait a minute, we're still missing the boat here when it comes to economic development in our county. That would be one of the biggest things that I think is the most important, is being able to remove that in order to be remove the political ideology in order to be able. Jeepers, what else can we do in there, I guess?
No, tell us. What are your ideas? What other ideas are you bringing forward?
Transparency, I think, is one of the biggest things. And again, when you remove ideology, I believe, from the clerk's office, that political ideology, it's helpful. For example, there's, an issue of 30-some-odd thousand checks that went missing or were cashed, and there's been nothing, no follow up, there's been questions asked. That's just one of the things. Looking at the mobile DMV, for example, and this has been something that a lot of people have asked. Why hasn't the mobile DMV been out for the last 4 years, and why did it come out shortly after I announced, and just all these different kind of questions come up. I'm getting phone calls almost on a daily basis that are telling me things like, Peter, I hope you win, because right now we feel so isolated in the office. They tell me that, I hear feedback that there's a void of leadership overall. And those are the kind of things that I believe that I can change. I believe in an employee-driven model for staffing, for example. I believe in engaging our employees because, customer service being paramount, that comes from employees that are engaged and involved. And when I'm getting calls from strangers telling me, and I don't mean just one or two calls, I mean people that I've never met in my life, that just shows me that I made the right decision to run, and that the plan that we're putting out there is a solid plan.
Yeah. Why specifically the clerk office? Like, you can run for a lot of different things. Why specifically that position?
Absolutely. Well, I was actually asked to run for that position. The party chair approached me, and we went back and forth. I had no desire to run this cycle or really run at all. I just got off of a 2-year, really long, really hectic campaign. My wife and I just kind of looked back and we were like, maybe we should just kind of enjoy, life a little bit, enjoy the grandkids. But when the party chair asked me, and he asked me a couple times, and I went through and I said, okay, let me look at it because I don't want to run just to run. So I started looking at what is the county clerk's office, what can they do in the community, what hasn't been happening that I can bring change to, and has it not happened for reasons beyond the control of the current clerk, or has these changes not happened just because they haven't happened or a lack of leadership? And what I found is, some of the things that I've shared that we'd like to do are things that could have happened but haven't happened at all. I mean, not even under previous clerks. And we ask questions about money, for example. The budget's been solidified for the mobile DMVs. But there's not. Looking at some of the way things have been led, the services that we can offer, the things that should have been done or could have been done, that out of the box thinking, using an office of that, because it's a very, it's a very important office that everybody should know about. None of your listeners should say, what does the county clerk office do?
Right.
But, again, that's a lack of leadership.
Yeah. I know that the DMV, the mobile DMV, has been here at Ibero. I've seen the announcement a couple of times, and I don't know the success of it. I haven't asked, the people that are helping run that, how successful and how many people have come. But I can understand why it's needed, and I'm just going to use my own community as an example, sometimes bringing these services here, also being able to have some language access, which I don't know if that's an issue for the clerk's office currently right now. Do you have enough people there to service people of different languages?
That's a great question. And the thing is, I don't have the specific answer to that. I do know people, that I know directly, that I know directly that do speak Spanish, what that translates into their role.
Right.
But yes, that is all part of access. People need to be able to not just communicate their needs, but also have an ability to be able to understand the services that we're offering, so that that can say, oh, wait a minute, I got to go to DMV, or no, I've got to go to this office in downtown because I'm working on a sports license agent, for example. The issue of translating or language, that whole issue of language access has been around since as long as I can remember. And it just seems to continue. And we do things like say, oh, we're going to put a sign in the wall. Okay, that's great. But have we actively gone into the communities that we serve? But you see, decentralizing the clerk's office will not only help solve that, I believe it'll be a permanent solution. Now, when I talk about the mobile DMV, the mobile DMV that I'd like to see is one that's on wheels, that's actual mobile. I believe that'll resolve the issue of security, not just in the city, but also outside of the city. And there's this myth that because you live in one of the suburbs, you don't have a language issue. Well, that's not a fact.
No, a language issue is everywhere.
It's all over. But you know what, though? If the, when you take like I said, an employee, a first kind of concept, as staffing, when you're focused on customer service, when you're giving development, when you're hiring the right people for the communities, when you're decentralizing, you're not governed by this one-size-fits-all approach, then we can start getting creative. If I've got a mobile DMV rolling here to Ibero, I am going to have Spanish and English people working there, probably in more abundance. But I'm also going to look into Gates that also has another another high population of people that English is a second language. And also a lot of people with disabilities like autism are moving to towns like that. That's one of the first places that I would look at, and I would make sure that there's, the appropriate staffing there for the right language. But that takes collaboration. I can tell you that town of Gates, Pittsford, and several other towns have been reaching out to the clerk's office saying, hey, we need these services here. We've had them here before. People keep asking us for it. No return calls whatsoever.
You spoke a little bit about, the opportunities for ideas and thinking outside of the box, but yet, that it's not necessarily that can't happen. It just haven't happened. And I it made me think about, well, we've always done it this way, right? We've always done it this way. This is the way we've always done it. So there's really no need to change, right? And so when you have that mentality, you're never going to think outside the box. You're never going to try new ideas, or you're never going to take, what the community is asking for seriously and saying, okay, we may have to do this a little different. Do you think that that's a fear? I know you said that it's probably a lack of leadership, but do you also think that it's a fear of change? Some people just fear change, and they get very comfortable doing things the way they've always done it. So what kind of, what is your thought about that? With, obviously you want to make a difference, you want to change some things, but do you think that could it also be a lack of fear that people that have been in that position are saying, no, I'm comfortable where I'm at. I don't want to, step out of my comfort zone and do something different.
You know what? Absolutely. I don't want, and please, this shouldn't be taken as, I'm making no malice towards the current clerk. I'm sure she's a great person. Yeah. I think I've met her once or twice. Other than that, I haven't met her. But yes, and that is the problem, not just across the board, not just in the county clerk's office, but across the board. People have become, many leaders or elected officials have become very complacent for a lot of reasons. And depending on political persuasions, because we've got people on the right that have been there for a long time. And I asked them the same questions. I'm like, listen, what have you done in your 30 years sitting there that made our community, at large better? Because even though we represent, specific districts, for example, the decisions and the things we vote on are large. They go beyond our districts. But no, absolutely. But see, that's part of the problem. And the thing about leadership is that it requires you to make everything that you do not about yourself. And if you make everything you do not about yourself, then you start being able to see when that complacency is settling in, because you're seeing the same issues over and over again. And if you're not, then maybe you should take a step back or say, wait a minute, I definitely need to reevaluate. But complacency, getting comfortable for a lot of reasons, including the politics.
This is the way we've always done it. I hear that a lot.
I mean, mandates. Mira, I'm so sick and tired. Listen, I said to somebody once, I said, the next politician that tells me they're not going to do something or they can't change something because it's a mandate, I'm going to throw a slipper at them,
Una chancleta.
Una chancleta, un chancletazo. Al estilo puertorriqueño. But the, mandates to me, they're a call to action. They require the elected individual to advocate within the role that they were elected for and advocate. I don't want to hear that the reason why DMV, my son, just is in the process of buying a house, had to renew his license. $95. Now, mira, $95 to me may not be a lot of money today, but for him,
it's a lot.
I mean, that was like, I can't close this day because now I got to pay this $95 plus this other, just things absurd. So to hear that, okay, well, that's a mandate that you're just stuck with it. No, where's the advocacy? Where's the fight? And you would think, and I say this respectfully, because the party affiliation, I mean, it's kind of run by one party for the most part. No completamente, obviously, but there's a lot of decision making. There's a supermajority power there. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if I can tell you this, if the Republican Party held the majority in the State House, I can promise you I'd be dragging that governor on the carpet every chance I get, just because, as I will now, on a Democrat side, because it's about the people. It's not about me. I can see if that was happening and there was no change, because there are, all you can do is advocate. Right? But there's nothing, Ida, nothing.
Yeah. You've talked a lot about, some of the changes, some of the things that you see that people are calling you and telling you, the changes that need to happen. And to me, it sounds like a lot of work.
Yes.
Right? So, And that could be another reason, right? It could be that, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we're going to keep it. Or it could be that fear of change because, people do fear change. But people also fear hard work. So, how do you feel about that? Because it sounds like you have some really great ideas, right? That can definitely serve the community better. But it also requires a lot of hard work. So how much are you willing to pull up your sleeves, and you'll probably be faced with some barriers, right? And so how willing are you to, to work hard, but then also to fight those barriers when they come your way?
Absolutely, and it's a great question. Hard work isn't something that I'm afraid of. I mean, from the time that I was a knucklehead, thinking I was a gangster to to the things that I do now.
I can't picture you that way. Seeing you here today, I can't picture you that way at all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I worked hard. I worked very hard to get to where I'm at.
Yeah.
But hard work is important to me. I've taught that to my kids.
Yeah.
I taught it. I taught it at work. So that's not foreign. As far as barriers, again, because it's not about me, because it's not about my politics, because it's not about what I believe in, personally. Because what I believe in regards to the C is that there's a service provider that needs to be shaped to, caramba. We have a service provider in the county that isn't paying attention to we the people, I guess I should say, right? And I believe that once we employ this, like an employee-driven model at work, because it all really boils down to the success of the employee and making sure that they have the tools that they need, right? I believe that it boils down, in taking down these barriers, it boils down to trust of those employees. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely. When I say removing political ideology, if I start coming in talking about, mira, yo soy el jefe, yo creo esto, in the politics,
that's
not going to fly, right? If I say, you're not going to, if you don't agree with me, and these are things that I'm hearing, by the way. But when you remove all that, everything is employee driven. We've got happy employees, customer services at the top. I'll tell you what, I'll challenge any individual that'll try to create a barrier for me, because when what we're doing is directly for the people of the community that we serve, the only barriers there would be are political.
Yeah.
And those, listen, I pick up the microphone. I'll call you up, right? I'll call everybody that I need to up and say, this is the problem that I'm having. I need your help.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about during election cycles.
Right.
I'm talking about, Mira, don't give me a hard time. And somebody told me once that in politics, you need one of two things, or both. You either need to be very rich, which I'm not, or you need to be surrounded by people. And now this is the thing. I'm not a bobblehead. I was always the board member that everybody disliked because I had the questions. I didn't just shake my hand. I held people accountable, kind of stuff. Oh, gee, I lost my train of thought again on that one.
So that you have people around you. You don't have the money, but you have people around you.
We had the people around us. But when I say that, I was very cautious to ensure, and I'm very cautious to ensure that people that I partner with aren't always just like-minded people. Everything I do is outside, even though I do a lot of politics. It's outside of politics, and I try to do that intentionally because I believe that's a destructive force. I employ. I like to teach people, or I like to teach to have the balance of faith, politics, and entrepreneurship, understanding that entrepreneurship starts with oneself, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the people that I surround with, people that believe that, wait a minute, we can do so much more when we listen, right? When we understand what we know, and then we partner with people to get it done. Because it shouldn't just be about me.
Right. You talked a lot about collaborating. What are your thoughts? Like, what ideas do you have right now? I know you want to move some of these services directly to the people, taking the services to where the people are. What kind of collaboration will you need to be able to do that?
Absolutely.
Outside of the county clerk's office, right? People in the community that are going to be able to help you to do that.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, on day one that I take over the clerk's office, I intend to call every service provider, the executive director or the board chair of every organization throughout the county that is poised to help someone, whether it's through homeless work, whether it's through addiction, and I want to get these people together to understand what the needs of the people that they serve are, right? Because when we start with a goal of helping the person that is worse off the most and build from there, then we start building a mindset, or at least an understanding that we're shifting a culture back to inclusivity and equality, back to compassion, back to understanding that everything we're doing is for the people of the county across the board. Yeah. Because like I mentioned, and you validated, outside of the city limits, there's still a language barrier. Yeah. There's still poverty. I mean, again, Yates County, 99.8% of white, I guess. Yeah. But yet the poverty level there is extreme. It's one of the poorest counties around, right? So understanding that's where I would start. From there, looking at the services that we have is where I'll start establishing the partnerships throughout the county, decentralizing our services right off the bat. Yeah. And again, I believe, like Frederick Douglass, I'll partner with anybody to do good, just nobody to do wrong.
Right.
And I'll start there.
Yeah, I like that. Let me just translate a little bit, because we hemos hablado mucho en inglés, pero, Peter está en una posición para poder, ser elegido para la oficina de secretaria del condado de Monroe. Y él tiene muchas ideas de cómo cambiar un poquito esos servicios. Él siente que los servicios hoy en día están demasiado electrónicos, ¿verdad? Sí. Todo es un appointment, todo tiene que hacer cita, y él quisiera traer algunos de esos servicios a la comunidad que sean accesibles a todas las personas que lo necesiten. No solamente en la ciudad, pero a través de todo el condado, porque obviamente la oficina sirve todo el condado, y él estaba hablando de ciertas áreas de nuestros condados que aún no tienen algunos de estos servicios. Cambiar un poquito esa idea de que todo tiene que ser en la oficina de ellos, todo tiene que ser a través de una cita, tienes que ir al website. Él quiere verdaderamente abrir las puertas, pero no necesariamente las puertas del edificio donde están esos servicios, sino las puertas en las diferentes comunidades de las personas que quizás lo vayan a necesitar. Algo bien importante, ¿verdad? Yo misma tengo que admitir, no sabía mucho de lo que hacía el secretario del condado de Monroe, the clerk's office. Like, I really didn't really know much about what the clerk office does, but now I understand a little bit better. Muchas de las licencias que las personas necesitan, sean para un revólver, sea para, un automóvil, sea para si tienen un tipo de deporte o cualquier, evento que vayan a tener o algo así, todo eso va a través de la oficina del condado. Y él quiere poder tener esos servicios más accesibles a las personas. Y también para esas personas que quizás tengan alguna dificultad, ¿verdad? Que quizás tengan un sillón de rueda o que no vean o lo que sea, que él pueda llevar esos servicios a donde están las personas. Eso de lo que hemos estado hablando en el día de hoy. Pete, what are your last thoughts about, what it is that you want to do and what do you feel that it's important for the community to know?
Absolutely. It's important for me, I guess, for the community to understand who I am and where I come from. Yo entiendo la política y entiendo que hay cosas de política que tenemos que hacer in this environment. Yeah. Pero para mí es importante que entiendan que yo solamente soy una persona que me creé aquí en esta comunidad y entiendo que hay... There's more than what we can see.
Hay más de lo que podamos ver.
Exactamente.
Mucho más allá.
Y la comunidad de nosotros, la comunidad latina, la comunidad negra, toda la comunidad, we should be able to have much more and a better quality of life, and I believe the county clerk's office can offer that and should be offering that type of service.
Yeah. That's really important. I customer service to me is big, right? To me, and I always look at customer service more as an individual service, right? Because every person is going to be different.
That's a good one, yeah.
And so it's not a cookie cutter type of, service, regardless of what it is, right? Even if you're a cash register person at, Wegmans or whatever, each individual person that comes through your line, you're going to treat each person individually, right? Because each person is going to have, that one person may want all their grocery in one bag. Another person may want their stuff divided into 5 bags. And you should be able to do that, right, for each individual person. So I really like the ideas that you're bringing forward, and that you're thinking of the community as a whole, and that you're really listening, right? You said you receive many calls every day about the different services and how it can be improved, and that you're taking all of those into consideration, if you are elected. And, and I hope that, even if you're not elected, that whoever is in that position can take some of these ideas that you have, and hopefully some of the calls that you've received, and really listen to the community. I think our community is in a different place nowadays, where they really want to be heard.
Yes.
That they're also not just going with the status quo. Like, they want things that are different. They want things that are innovative. They want things that are easily accessible to them, right? Yeah. I mean, I think about my neighbor who orders from I don't know, that service that brings your food to the house. Like, she uses it all the time, and I'm thinking, like, wow, I can't think that way, but she does. But that's what she wants, right? And so I'm glad that she's able to get something. Obviously she doesn't have a car, so it's not like me. I can get in my car and go buy whatever I need, but she doesn't have a car, so she uses Uber all the time. She uses DoorDash all the time. And that's what people want, right? People want things now, immediately in their hands, without having to go through a lot of struggle. And I know you talked a little, we didn't really get into detail about, you said there's really cumbersome when people have to get there, right? The appointment is not so hard, but having to get there with all the documents that you need and that whole process. And I'm hoping that, you'll streamline that a little bit as well, so that it's not so hard for people. But I like the idea that you're really thinking about the people, that you're really thinking about the people's need, and how can you better that? Absolutely. Right, and how can you better that? And, to have the entire county to think about, that's a lot of people, right? That's a lot of people, like you said, way beyond of what we see, in front of us. And so that you're taking all of those people's ideas and suggestions in mind, if you are to service them in the way that you're thinking. So,
absolutely.
The best of luck to you with all of that.
I appreciate it. And if I can clarify, I just wanted to add to the thing of customer service. See, customer service isn't just that interaction at the counter. Yeah. Customer service is the innovation that the leader that's there puts in place to ensure that everything is made easier, affordable, friendly, and more importantly, safe and secure, right, for our customers. Yeah. That's the overall customer service that is that I see lacking there, that we can improve on, not just the counter interaction, but definitely that too.
Yeah, definitely. Peter, thank you so much for being with us today. I like to end the show by asking if there's a phrase or a saying that you grew up listening to, and I don't know if you have one.
Oh, well, so many. I consider my father so brave. But if I can share a quote that I heard recently, and it's a modification of a Bible quote. I believe it's probably John 1:14. But the T-shirt that I bought says, "I'm something good that came from the hood." And I love it.
That.
So I wear it all the time. But
I love that. I love that quote.
That became
something good that came from the hood.
Yeah. I love, and I share it where I can.
Yeah.
If I'm wearing like a suit or the white shirt, I'll wear that shirt underneath, and people say, "Hey, what? Why do you have lettering?" Because right. And I'll show them, and I'm like, "Read it." That's why I have it.
I love that
because I think that we need more people empowered, not enabled. Yeah. And I think that's where, I'd lead a lot of.
And we might have you back. I want to hear about your knucklehead stories. Like, I want to hear what some of the things that you used to do, that has really brought you to the person that you are today. And I truly believe that I know many of people that, that have had the biggest trials and tribulations, but yet, have been able to overcome that. And I think those are important stories to tell, those are inspiring stories that a lot of times people need to listen, especially those that have kind of lost hope and think that this is the way my life is going to be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
I'll be honest. I wish that when I turned on the TV, I saw more of that than what we're seeing. And you know those big billboards for the Mega Millions and stuff? I wish those had a story.
Yeah, they had a story. Yeah. Well, you know, hey, there's always time to be creative and maybe make some changes in that area as well. But I think it's important for people to hear people's personal stories and, you know, what brought them, right? When you were looking at your son at 17 to say, you know, I got to do something different. Like, I want to learn more about you and that side of your story, you know, where it brought you to.
Well, I'd be honored to come back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Good luck to you. I hope everything works out well. I'm glad that people had an opportunity to learn a little bit about you and your work and what it is that you want to accomplish. And I wish you the best of luck.
Muchas gracias.
Sí,
I appreciate it.
Claro. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en esta mañana. Lo esperamos nuevamente el próximo sábado de 10 a 11 de la mañana en Poder 97.1 FM, la única estación radial latina con dueños y operados por latino, por la comunidad, para la comunidad. Esto ha sido su hora informativa, trayendo la información importante que nos inspira a una mejor calidad de vida. Que pasen una linda semana. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.